Let's move along here to Alex P. Hello, Alex. You're up next. What's going on?
Hello, how are you?
Pretty good. Pretty good. Got a hand for us?
Yes, very interesting hand.
Okay. Where's this played out of?
All right, so this is at Parks in Bensalem,
Oh,
PA.
Parks, like the Parks, right?
The Parks. You ever go there?
I've been there once or twice, and I know that our moderator and extraordinaire Michael G loves to play at Parks. So they've got 1K cap games, and then they've got, what, like 10-10 games there, right, on Tuesdays and all that, right?
So I think on Tuesdays they have like uber high stakes games,
Uh-huh.
like 50, 100
Oh,
games,
okay.
very high stakes games.
hmm
The 10-10 game there is always a $3,000 cap. I like that a lot. So it's $3,000 max buy in 10-10.
Uh-huh.
Typically you can get the straddle going unless like one or two people don't want to do it.
Yep.
So that's what like, and that's usually the highest stakes running.
Is that where you're playing here, 10-10?
Yes, here
Okay.
we're playing 10-10, but everyone was $20 straddling, so I just put 10-10-20 in the email.
Okay.
Want me to run through it?
Sure. How deep are you?
Cool. So how deep? Everyone is quite deep. Like I put in the email about $8,000 to $10,000 deep. Sorry
Okay.
for not having more specifics, but the hand didn't necessarily get to the point
Sure.
of needing to go all in.
Okay.
But I would say maybe for it's like everyone is $9,000 deep in this.
Okay.
So we're playing either seven or eight handed, close to the full table. Villain one, who is a tight, nitty pro, who is there pretty much every time I go there, and I am not a pro. He races to 50.
Okay.
Middle position, villain two.
Mhm.
He calls next to act.
Okay.
I am in the small blind with Jack of Spades, Jack of Diamonds,
Jack of
and I
spades,
make
Jack
it
of diamonds.
240.
Okay. So you three bet to 240.
Yeah.
All right. So like plus one ish opens to 50. MP calls here on the small blind goes to 240. I mean, just a little quick math, right? Like the 4x plus the dead call would go just around 250. You might actually make it slightly larger here with some of the deep stacks, but I mean, this is, sure, this is fine. I think more often than not, people have trouble here where they go far too small. So, okay, three bet to 240. I'm with you.
I make it 240. I agree, and they both call.
By the way, is this kind of a small raise to start, or were people opening to 50?
Yeah, it's a good point. You know what I've noticed? I've noticed that like the professionals typically raise it to like 50. Maybe because they're more comfortable playing against a wider range in the blinds would be my guess. I typically make it 60, or if everyone else is making it 70-70, but it wasn't like weirdly different than their normal strategy on the day.
That's pretty. I mean, that's a small open size. I mean, I've heard about this stuff like at the Bellagio 10-20, people like opening to 50. I never have seen anything like that in Texas or in California. But
Yeah,
okay.
you're right, because like the 2-5 game there, it's like 20-25.
Yeah,
so,
of course. Yeah.
for sure.
Okay, so right around 730 the flop. Okay.
Yeah. So the flop comes 9-9-7 with two spades and one heart.
9 of spades, 9 of hearts, 7 of spades. It must be right. Okay.
I'm first to act.
Yep.
And again, we're both, all three of us are very deep. I bet 330.
So, what was the deal? So you said that the guy from Plus One's a pro. What about the MP1 guy? Do you know anything about him?
Yeah, so I think this is important to establish in the beginning of the hand. So yeah, V1 seems to be like a tight pro, pretty good, honestly. Sometimes, like in Vegas, the pros are kind of so straightforward. It's almost a little bit easy to play against. This guy was quite good. The first villain.
Uh-huh.
Now, the second villain, this is very interesting. So I've been playing at this table for like 6, 7, 8 hours now, so that's a while. You really get a vibe with the players. This guy was like min buying for 1,000, very talkative, didn't seem like a reg whatsoever, and his stack got dwindled down to like 2 to 3, like honestly like $200 at one point, and he would get it all in preflop and like run it twice. So I thought he was some, like taking a shot, random guy. But then as I was playing there for longer, people are talking about how everyone knew who he was. They were talking about how he plays in the 50-100 game. I heard stories about how he would tell me, he bought it for 10K, lost, bought it again. So isn't that like a weird way to describe a player?
Well, No, I mean, he sounds recreational, but everyone's got 8 or 9,000 to start this hand, right? You and the two villains, right?
Right. So he was min buying and like
Right.
running it twice,
And
then
then
he
he was
eventually
running it up. Right.
Yeah, and then he like ran it up.
Here's the thing. So here's the theory of this is that when you're this deep in a 3-bet pot, you might want to play this defensive here. Now, your hand does need a little bit of protection. It might call for a smaller bet or even sometimes check. Now, I tell my subscribers I don't really get overly concerned with sort of board favoring situations when playing sort of small to medium stakes. But when you get up here and players are decent, they can sometimes attack a board that favors them. With that being said, I got to tell you though, even with the good players from all the Friday nights I've done on Hustler Casino Live, I still haven't seen even like a Garrett or an Andy necessarily blindly attack a board. By the way, too, this quote unquote pro, he's got to worry about the guy behind him. He can't just go balls to the wall with air saying, I've got a 9 and you don't. So he has to tend to be a little bit more straightforward, which kind of lends itself to making a smaller bet because then you're forcing him to actually call in the middle more. Whereas the larger you go, the more he can just safely fold out with a guy behind him. So you kind of take an in-between sizing. I might have gone a little bit smaller, but okay, so you go 330. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I especially with jacks, like you need a little bit of protection. And also you can get value from hands too. Like let's say you check and like a 6 comes off or an 8 or a 10 or an ace, king, queen. It's like almost no turn card you're that happy about if it does check through. So I do understand what you're saying with the checking sometimes. Do you think like aces is a better checking hand though?
No, absolutely.
Okay,
yeah, absolutely. Right. So you go 330, okay.
Yep. V1 folds.
Okay, so the pro is out. So plus 1
out.
folds.
And this rec calls.
All right, so call.
By the way, he was playing a lot of like limp pre-flop, call pre-flop, like very weird pre-flop stuff.
Well, he double flatted, right? So double flatting means he called the raise and then calls your 3-bet. So that right then and there should collapse his range. He's never going to have like very high overpairs, but he could have a 9 or, pocket 7s or something like that, right? Yeah, so it looks like it's just, I'm going to put it at 1,400 right now. It's just a hair probably under 1,400. Okay.
Yep. So then the turn is the 3 of hearts.
3 of hearts. So for the podcast people, it's 9 of spades, 9 of hearts, 7 of spades, turns to 3 of hearts. Again, hero 3-bet out of the small blind with jack of spades, jack of diamonds. And we've got this, we're up against this rec. It appears to be rec regular in MP who double flatted pre, pot's 1,400. Okay. Now double flush draw board.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. This is a crazy hand. I play poker a lot. This was a wild one. I bet 630.
So still kind of taking that half 630, still kind of taking that half pot size bet. If I was up against a rec here, I don't mind continuing to bet here on a double flush draw board. It's just one of these things where if you have to ask yourself, like, are you if you bet again here on the turn, depending on your sizing, are you trying to take this hand for full 3 streets, or are you just going to check any river? Trying to bluff catch against a draw?
That's a good question. I think that probably check any river that's not like a 9 or a jack, maybe.
If you're going to check any river, I probably, to be honest with you, I might even like a larger sizing here.
Yeah.
I might like a larger sizing here of maybe close to 2/3, 900, 1,000, something like that. If you want to keep your options, so this would be, again, it's kind of hard to sim this one, but I can kind of see maybe 2 sizings being used here, depending on what you want to do, whether it's a 1/3, sometimes going for 3 streets. That would probably be more of a situation that I might keep in a scenario where it was heads up against this guy.
Yeah, exactly.
And whereas here, it's kind of multi-way, so...
3 street is ridiculous in this scenario. Not ridiculous, but
I mean, he'd have to be really bad. He'd have to be really, really bad.
Yeah, exactly.
To call
like a giant calling station.
Yeah, some of my opponents on Hustler, sure, I'd go for 3 streets. Yeah. All right, so you bet 630. Okay.
I bet 630, and he calls.
Okay.
He tanked for a decent bit, and he did make this comment like, let me get there one time. And obviously, if we're playing like 1-2 and an old guy says this, it's like, all right, he's probably nutted. It seemed more like a genuine tank, but it was like, it's a comment, and you have to factor it into like everything that's going on, right?
Yeah, I mean, some people in the live chat's obviously saying that, you hold the jack of spades, which has a tiny bit of relevance because it blocks some hands like Jack 10 of spades or other
Yeah,
spade types of combos. So you think he's feigning like he has a draw, you mean?
it's obviously possible that's what he's doing.
Uh-huh.
I think that he's good enough to maybe balance this sometimes between maybe he does have a draw, maybe he has a nutted hand. But I think it's something worth noting. That tank seemed a bit genuine, though.
Okay. So it looks like it's about 2660 to the river. Okay.
Yeah. River comes, and it's an offsuit ace, the ace of diamonds.
That's interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, now definitely your play is to check for sure.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, yeah.
So I agree. I check.
Okay.
And after a bit of thinking, this guy bets 2,200.
So just under the pot.
Right.
Well,
so do you want to give your thoughts, or do you want me to give my thoughts?
Well, I'll give my thoughts right off the cuff here, since that's what everybody's I think like watching for. So I knew some guys that kind of played. I knew some bad lags and some decent lags from my days at Commerce 510, and the decent lags were few and far between. And what I mean by and they were still probably losing players, but somebody that I would deem like decent would be someone that would know their image and would be at least good enough to bet the river here with the nut flush draw, knowing that he has the best hand. Like if he had like ace 6 of spades or something like that, right? So if you're up against a guy like that who can depolarize at the end and recognize that ace X is a very good hand, and also possibly recognize that your hand, just sheer combinations wise, probably isn't aces full. Now, once in a while, sure, you could have been like betting like ace king, ace queen to check, and that, to fall into a check call shell. But probably the way that you've taken this hand, it's probably more likely that you have overpairs. If you're up against a player that can identify these situations, it's kind of difficult, right? It's a kind of a difficult spot. Now, also too, slow play, obviously there can be some slow plays here too, right? I mean, you can have 9x that didn't raise. You could have 7th full, something like that. So, I mean, you're getting just over 2-1. And let's just say that he bet pot. You can look at this from an MDF perspective where you're supposed to call down with half your hands, right? Because he's risking, the pot bet. And then you say, well, are jacks in the top half of my hands here that I would play this way? It kind of depends on how you play ace king ace queen. If you're barreling ace king ace queen, it might not be if the bottom part of your 3-bet range squeeze here is 10-10. And then you got to look at sort of the combo in your hand, because you got the spade in your hand, which makes it less likely that he has a spade draw. So it would be slightly better here if you didn't have a spade in your hand to bluff catch, giving him more of an opportunity, obviously, to have front door spades. It's pretty close. Some people are saying jam. Sure, jam right into 9-7 or 7 full. I don't know.
That's a move that sounds nice in theory.
Here's the problem with jamming. The problem with jamming here is if I am your opponent. Now, I'm not saying that your opponent's necessarily thinking about this. If I am your opponent and I hold ace X of spades here, and I make a bet for value at the end and you jam, I don't think I'm folding, because you only have one combo of pocket aces. I don't think the board really, unless you've got pocket 9s and you played it this way, if I thought that you were in any way capable of turning something into a bluff and I have ace X here, I'm not folding. Now, obviously, this guy's might not be on this line. I don't think I would take this hand and turn it into a bluff.
That seems uber optimistic. Yeah. So why I asked, do you want my opinion? I, of course, want your opinion. What I meant was, I was under the very strong impression that this particular player in this exact situation versus me would never bet a naked ace for this much.
Well, then that should make it easy then.
Then it's kind of an easy call, right?
If he's not going to bet if he's not betting ace X, if you don't think your opponent's betting ace X of spades, and you very well might be right, with a rec player, then his hand just is too polarized for me to fold, because now he's just representing all slow plays, right?
That's kind of exactly what I was thinking in the situation. I just never, if he flipped over ace 10 of spades, God bless him, but I just didn't think that was in this player's repertoire. you're right though. If he had like ace queen of spades, he should be value betting, I think, in my opinion.
Well, he should be value betting any ace x of spades, ace four of spades, ace six of spades. And again, it's just, I mean, is he going to run into you maybe once in a while having ace king, ace queen that played this way? Yeah, maybe, but I think, and then, this is kind of player dependent. If I'm the opponent here, it really depends on who my opposition is. If I have ace six of spades here and I get checked to, it depends on who I'm playing for what my bet size is. If it's a bad player, I would tend to bet more. Because they're going to think I busted out. If it's a good player that can understand the situation, I might use a 1/3-ish sizing to give a good cheap price on a bluff and force them to call down with pairs.
Right. Do you think, I played one prior hand with this guy where I 3-bet pre-flop with queens. The flop came king, queen, X with 2 spades. I bet, he called. The turn was the 3rd spade. I bet, he called. River was a complete blank. I bet kind of small, like 440, kind of smallish to hope to get called by a king. He like min raised to 1,000, minish raised to 1,000 with like 300 behind. This was before he ran up a stack. And I kind of like snap folded. And he was like, he pretended like he was pissed that I folded. And it seemed genuine to me, but I don't know about anything about this guy. Maybe it was acting, but he seemed like I made a good fold. That was like the only other hand I played against this guy. And so now in this situation, this is hours later, but he's betting much larger, right? Whereas before you couldn't even get min raise value versus set.
Yeah, I mean, I think you've hit the nail on the head, and then you can do a reveal here, Alex, and you're going to move along. But I think you've hit the nail on the head. If you tag guys a recreational player, that's one of the things that I think is very important in these decisions, is immediately tagging people as good or bad. If I don't think the guy's a good player, I'm going to call because I don't think he's betting ace x of spades. So did you call?
I ended up calling, and he showed ace-9 offsuit.
Ace-9 offsuit. Okay, so he's got the stone cold nuts. That's fine, though. You're going to run into that. We can't be results-oriented. Okay, he's got ace-9 off, which means that he slow-played flop and turn on a double flush draw board. I mean, ace-9 is any 9, right? There's no difference between ace-9 here and king-9. He should be making the same bet, so we can't necessarily learn anything about this guy by the fact that he has ace-9, besides that he's way out to lunch and he might have more combos of 9x, and the fact that he slow played through to the river. But we'd learn more if he had ace-6 of spades here. So
yeah, and he had ace-9 offsuit, which you called a raise.
That's what I mean.
And a 3-bet. Yeah, I'm more happy that I deduced that he wouldn't have just a naked ace there. And I agree. It's kind of a call if he can't have the naked ace. So.
Yeah. No, I appreciate the call. Thank you very much.